Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josephine Watson, and I'm the Commercial Projects Editor at iGaming Business, and I'll be moderating today's session. We are absolutely delighted to be hosting a webinar ahead of IGB Affiliate London today, where we're going to be looking at how affiliates can scale their business. In this webinar, we'll be discussing the tools you need to develop your business, a combination of practical advice and explorations of the mindset of success. As always, there will be a Q&A following the presentation, so do submit any questions as we go along via the GoToWebinar platform, and we'll try to address as many of them as possible in the allocated time. We have a fantastic panel for you today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. They know themselves better than I do. So Stephanie, let's start with you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie Winters. I'm an ex-affiliate manager and now currently working on my own as a master affiliate and as well developing affiliate software. So really looking forward to today's discussion.
And next up, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been around iGaming for a long time. I've been an affiliate. I specialize in SEO. I've built some businesses, I've sold some businesses, and my contribution today will hopefully be about building businesses and making them more efficient. So on we go.
And finally, Bertan, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, it's Bertan Baytekin. I'm an electronics engineer. I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years now. Developed various projects over the last 15 years and now actively working on two projects. They're both community driven. One is ProTipster. It's about tipster community affiliate, and the keywords would be that, and AppJobs, which is the largest gig economy platform online today. So I'm hopefully going to contribute when it comes to entrepreneurship and a few tips and tricks about how to take care of yourself so that everything goes fine with your business as well.
Excellent, thanks all. So to warm us up a little bit, let's look at some of the foundational areas of launching a successful business as an affiliate. Stephanie, perhaps you can kick us off. You obviously work with affiliates day to day. What are some of the most common pieces of advice your clients come to you looking for?
Well, mainly everybody wants to be current and know what is going on in the industry. There's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of changes going on in the different areas. So a lot of regulation, licensing issues, and things of that nature. Most of all, people want to know what are the tips and the tricks and the trends that are going on right now, and how to make it and how to make money in the industry. And always finding out better ways of doing things using technology and tools.
Fantastic. And Nick, you've sort of successfully run a number of businesses throughout your career in various different areas. What are the common threads you're seeing to finding success across these areas, and how's that sort of translating across the affiliate space as well?
To understand why. I know it sounds very big and philosophical, but here we go. So if you understand why something was successful, then you know the secret sauce. And if you don't understand and you're successful, then you're lucky and dangerous, because you're not going to be able to replicate it, or you won't know when to stop, or you won't know when to restart if your luck runs out. So just understanding why. And that means, for example, if you're an affiliate, how and why the search engines rank certain things, more the why certain search engines rank certain things. The how is all the usual SEO stuff, but very few affiliates ever really ask the why. So these are important things. And organizationally, if you're dealing with human beings who are notoriously erratic, let's say, because they're not robots, then you got a whole lot of other kind of why questions, which are, why is this person happy? Why are they motivated? Why are they demotivated? And once you get to the bottom of those kind of questions, then you start to have answers, and then you get really successful because you can get things done better.
Excellent. And then finally, Bertan, sort of wrapping up the warming up part of this. The businesses you run, such as ProTipster, are also focused on providing value first and foremost to your customers. How long did it take you to turn that customer satisfaction into financial success with this project?
Well, actually, it always depends on what you mean by financial success, because it's a very broad spectrum. But when we talk about money coming in, it usually doesn't start before the first 6 months. If you expect to make money before 6 months, it's not a very realistic world. So you need to invest some time and make sure that everything gets indexed properly, and then also try to understand your audience a little bit, like what they really like, where they interact, what turns them on from that perspective, so that they like your product or the content or whatever it is, your product. And then you optimize. And when you start optimizing, of course, it's in the shape of partnerships, but also in the shape of increasing the interaction and also increasing the overall business value that you're creating. So I would say it's not realistic to expect any returns before 6 months, but it could also take up to several years, depending on what that goal is that you defined earlier. So in the particular example, in the Pro Tipster example, it took us approximately 1 year before we started seeing some returns. And then over the years, it became stronger and stronger. So we built on that.
Can I just add to this about returns? So a lot depends on how big a chunk you're aiming for. In other words, if you're trying to do something as big as Pro Tipster, prepare to go in for a long slog. If you're going to build a little niche, if you found a little niche somewhere, like, I don't know, like Indonesian slots or something random like that, and you build a site that's actually useful to satisfying, useful to those players, you might rank in 3 weeks. So then you're making money if you've got very little outgoing, very few outgoings. So all things are relative, obviously. The one thing I would say is if you think it's going to take X, just double it. Basically.
Would you agree from your experience, Stephanie?
Most definitely. Like I agree with both Nick and Burton. It depends on how ready your business is. You know, are you ready to open the doors? Because sometimes people go live with products that are not ready, and that can handicap also the money coming in. So from the time that your business is ready, if we're talking about a regular affiliate website for sports betting or casino, yes, it does take some time to get your page indexed and to get some traction going and your marketing and so on. You can get lucky and, you know, land some customers and start making money right away, you know, if we're talking about specifically an affiliate website.
But if you know it's luck, then that's a good thing. If you think you're really clever because you don't know you were lucky, then you're dangerous. So
true.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing to add, perhaps, is the threshold is much lower when it comes to like keeping people engaged with your stuff nowadays. So if you think about what you build might have only one shot and people might never come back if you have a half-baked product, or if you have no value but just go after immediate returns. So I absolutely agree with Stephanie as well, that think through a little bit before you go out there with something, but don't think through way too much so that you spend a year building something and then eventually the time has passed for that value.
Yeah, and adding to that, there's this concept of minimum viable product. And I fell on my face, as it were, with one project where I built a minimum viable product, introduced it to the market, and because in this game you got one chance with search engines, largely one chance with users, because what you're doing is probably just like another 1,000 people's offerings. It's got to be right off the bat. So I came up with this idea, which I've written about, which is a maximum viable product. So what that means is just have a very little thing that does a really good job and get that one little thing just right. And with affiliate, it's ranking, that thing will then rank because it's satisfying to that particular audience, and then you got something to build on. But if you make it combine that with the other thing, which is you don't know what you don't know. And if you study the stories of entrepreneurs, generally they think they're going to go in and do whatever it is. And in reality, after a year or two, they look back and they realize that that wasn't what they planned at the beginning. So there's this whole thing about being agile and reducing your bet and just being modest, i.e. just pick off little chunks, but each chunk you do it really well. but it's a little chunk, not a big thing, a little thing.
That's excellent advice.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you so much. Moving on then to a slightly different side of the building of the business for these guys. A lot of the time, affiliates, as many in the audience will agree, are taking on the brunt, if not all of the responsibility as a one-man show. So outsourcing and building a distributed workforce can help prevent burnout for people that might be taking on all of this responsibility on by themselves. Stephanie, obviously, many of your clients must want to free up the time spent administrating their businesses, looking to focus more on elements they are passionate about. What are some of the key tasks that you feel affiliates can outsource, and when's the right time to start doing this and researching who's the best person to do the job?
Right. Well, first of all, we all need help. You know, it is tough to be a one-man show. And from time to time, if you don't have employees, it's great to outsource, especially the things that take up a lot of your time and that you don't enjoy doing. I find sometimes I will leave something to the very end if I don't enjoy doing the task, and things pile up as well. So you're better off farming out these things that take up a lot of time and that are actually some of your weaknesses. So focus on your strengths, and if you feel maybe, you know, accounting, doing the books, things like that, it's not really your strength, then you would want to outsource that to the best person possible. To build a website, if you don't have technical skills as an affiliate, just outsource it. You know, there's websites like Upwork where you can go in there. You don't have to hire someone and worry about having a full-time employee at your office. You know, with time, you'll get to know the platform and get some regular employees, if you will, that you continue to outsource to and that you feel, you know, they're reliable to work with. So I would say, yes, anything that's taking up too much of your time, anything that you don't really enjoy doing very much, go ahead and outsource it.
And Nick, I sort of passed that thread on to you a little bit. We've spoken before how about you're a big fan of the distributed workforce. Mm-hmm. How would you advise people decide which elements of running a business can be taken care of by others? Is it about sort of comparing time it would take you versus time it takes someone outsourced? And is there a magic ratio to this?
I am not going to answer that question right now. I'm going to say something else, which is that people have this weird correlation between the amount of work and the reward they get. So they think that if they work really hard, that they're going to get a lot of reward. And what I noticed when I've looked back on my life, that the biggest financial successes I've ever had were the one, oddly enough, were the ones that I put the least work into. And that sounds really weird, but it's true. So the first question you got to ask yourself is, why are you working so hard? Do you really need to? And a good place to answer and unpack a lot of that is Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. And once you get it into your head that it's okay to have an easier, successful life, then the outsourcing gets easier because you give yourself permission. It's like, it's all right if I work 4 hours a day instead of 14. You might like working 14, fair enough. Help yourself. I like working quite a lot, but you know, that's just me. So, right, once you got that sorted out, then the rest is fairly straightforward. So there's Upwork, as Stephanie said, and in my experience with all these things, recruitment is the #1 thing. So if you find somebody who's a really good recruiter and researcher, and you'll kind of know because they'll have a similar worldview to you and they'll be perceptive with people, etc. And their job is to go trawling around these sites and looking for freelancers and so on, so that you've got a roster of them. When you need that person for that thing, you're in control. So I had a successful agency which I sold, and it was based on distributed workforce. So we had 2 recruiters, and the reason that happened was because one day I had a guy sitting in front of me in my office in London, and I needed him, and deep down I knew he'd be a catastrophe. I hired him, he was a catastrophe. And I vowed never to do that again, so I got the 2 researchers involved, and they were really good at picking people. and with my CEO, who then looked after the business day to day, because, right, I want to offload work and concentrate on what I'm good at, which was the selling stuff and so on, conference speaking and all that stuff. Then the whole model worked. So the law that I follow is never be ransomed by anyone. You know, you need a website done or something like that. Make sure you're never the guy who's being held over a barrel by that person opposite you, because that's not a good place to be. So you've got 5 web designers you can call up, then you're in control. So that's my core general philosophy about distributed and working smart.
That's really interesting. Someone's come in with a question already, and I think we should be good to answer it now, actually. Obviously, a lot of the stuff you're talking about there, it comes with confidence and experience and age, where some affiliates are going to be younger, starting out their career, quite young entrepreneurs. How can they sort of quickly grasp these sort of quite high-level experiences that you would require to have the confidence to say, no, I am working too hard, I am putting too much into this, I am sort of being backed into a corner by my hiring needs?
The 10,000 hour rule is a good one. So Mozart had done his 10,000 hours by the time he was 12, 13 years old. You're constantly hearing about young people who build an app or do something, or, you know, found a huge company. You think, oh, they're so young. Well, no, they've done their 10,000 hours, or at least 5,000 hours. So there's this idea that if you do 5,000 hours, you get knowledgeable. 10,000 hours, you're expert. So 10,000 hours is like 10 years, basically. So the being young is not a reason to be unwise. That's the first thing. So what if you're young? There are lots of unwise older people out there. I think reading books, I know it sounds cheesy, but learn to read fast. So I've got into, I'm kind of into meditation, but not the normal way. So the normal way is like evacuate your mind, etc. So I do it the other way around. I'm now, these days I now read a book each morning. So I'm able to absorb a book in 45 minutes or less. And what I've noticed is that my world is increasing. So I think the thing is, the information's out there. Google is very good at helping you find these things. I think it starts with your own self-awareness and confidence in what you know you're good at, and then use that as your foundation for evolving as a person. Because, you know, you can. And there's one other big thing which I've learned. I'm very into. There's a therapist who I follow called Marissa Peer, and I like psychology and NLP, and she came up with this. She talks about this idea that your brain does what it tells you to do. So self-talk is important, i.e. good self-talk, positive self-talk. And she's so right. And I've been doing little experiments over the last month or two where I go, brain, do this. It's a clear command, do this, and then it does it. So if you say, oh, I'm young and what do I know? I say, well, just tell yourself you are wise because you're wise enough to come here and learn from some people. Give yourself good commands and structure your thinking and learn from books, which is a good place, podcasts, stuff like that. And over time, you get quite good at picking out who not to listen to and who to listen to. And I think also just start with the foundations, which is your mind and the way you look at the world, because in this world of knowledge workers, which we all are, your success is actually your decisions. And your decisions are largely driven by your desire for a positive outcome. So if you're full of negative self-talk, all you're doing is you're just pushing against a boulder. Get the negative stuff out of the way, clear the path, then you get momentum.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. I think we'll be coming a lot onto the mentorship and learning side of things later as well. So we'll pick up that thread again then. But really interesting. And I hope our audience member, if they have any follow-ups as well, definitely carry on sending them through. The next slide, it would be interesting to discuss with you a bit, Bertan, I think, because obviously another obvious area for consideration when looking to grow your business is securing investment. Bertan, you were able to secure outside investment for your gig economy platform, AppJobs. How did you know when it was time to look for funding, and what steps did you take to secure this?
I think we started by trying to understand why people would invest, and that question itself has two answers. People invest on things when they realize that there is a potential to scale them. Money helps scale, buys you time into beating your competitors. That's one angle. And we found that, okay, what we're building is very scalable after 8 months, and we need a lot more money than we have, or a lot more people than we have. So we pitched that to the investors. But then the second thing is also the hope for the business, not only the scale. So what you do needs to give people who have funds the certain hope that it will turn into something. And that is very important thing to achieve with storytelling. So if you don't have a story, if you think that you're building a technical platform, nobody will invest in it. If you talk about your product, nobody will invest in it. You need to start talking about what it really does change in people's lives. There are very good examples to this. Like, people are actually building very simple products, like it could be a very basic tool, but then they attach a whole lot of story around it. This product changes people's lives. Well, how does it do that? It just peels oranges, or it just does a very basic thing. Well, it doesn't just peel oranges, it just changes people's life. You attach that with an emotion that provides a real value to people, and that's sort of what we did well, I think, so that a lot of people saw it as an opportunity to be a part of it. So to sum this up, I mean, one thing is you need to prove that this thing that you're building helps them reach out to more people and make more money, of course, as a return. But then also you need to explain them that what they're investing on is something that does something for people, and not just on the product level, but also on the emotional level.
Bertan, can I ask you a question? So how long did it, so I've always bootstrapped my stuff, but anyway, and I am now looking for cash for a business idea, and the story I've got, well, you know about it because I sent you a thing. So how long did it take you from, hey, I'd like some cash, to cash?
Actually, we decided on it pretty early on, and it took us about 3 months, because we were a part of one of the most interesting accelerators in Stockholm. So we volunteered. We wanted to be a part of it. It was very risky because you expose yourself. I mean, you literally go into a competitive mode, and there are a lot of other people with brilliant ideas. Well, we said, yes, we will do it. And when you actually show that we know what we're doing, we know that we need scale, and we also want to use this money for this purpose, it was pretty easy. It took us only 3 months. But there were others who were not that clear about what they want. So maybe the answer is, if you have the clarity on things that you're building, other people get easily, you gain their trust, and then money is just a hygienic factor. It's just about the quantity.
And what about the networking, the networking element in this whole story?
So yeah, I mean, you can try and build a personal network, but I understand that most of the people out there, they are very busy trying to build their business because it's very stressful. I understand there are paychecks. I understand there's the life reality around them. They might have kids. They might have people they look after. So I would say that the best idea is to be a part of either an incubator or an accelerator of some sort. And there are also more and more of these in the gaming space. It used to be a completely unthought idea, but there are more and more people who are ready to take on other people who have ideas and support them financially until a certain point. Yes, you might lose some of your equity in the early stage, but at least it will give you a lot of insight and potentially also mentorship. So I would prefer building my network on the early stages through trusted networks of others. But of course, I mean, also go to events, absolutely, to iGaming business events or similar, because many people are out there scouting for brilliant other people. So that will also work.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to sort of pass that thread over to Stephanie as well, with your experience in the affiliate market, and like Bertan says, with there being a real thirst for that sort of investment side of things. What are you seeing sort of trend-wise when it comes to investment in affiliates?
Okay, well, trend-wise, I don't really know. I can speak about my experience. Like Nick, I've always bootstrapped as well. You know, I started off on my own with whatever money. I decided I wasn't going to seek investment. You know, just start slow and small. And if it works, then keep going, you know. But currently right now we are raising funds for a software project. And we did reach out to our network, both my partner and I, which was very good to have all this large trusted network of different entrepreneurs, business owners, and so on that are interested in the project as well. So it's been good. And I agree with Bertin in the sense of clarity. You have to know your numbers. You need to know exactly what you need. You need to do your market projections and be able to give a very realistic value of what you are looking for and what you're going to return in what set amount of time. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to invest in your business just to help you out. They're going to want a return on their investment, and that needs to be mapped out from the beginning, as well as always asking for a bit more. You know, things always turn out to be more expensive than you realize, and before you know it, you run out of money in your startup stage. So, you know, to do that as well, to make sure that you have your projections and add some cushion, some extra cushion for that.
So just on the investment thing, on me bootstrapping, the agency, no one's going to invest in an agency because it's not a new idea. So where's the scale in that? It's just a way of making money. And then once I sold that, I had some cash. I then set up my crypto casino called Oshi, and I wanted to get funding for that too. So I pimped it around, and people kind of went, yeah, that's kind of interesting, but no takers. And then, so I had to bootstrap that. It all turned out okay in the end, but it was just a lot of hard work. And then I sold it, which was nice. And now I've got another thing where it's kind of outside gambling. It's very investable, I believe. And it's like I can kind of tell people are kind of snapping at it because it is quite hot. And there is a thing here about being not delusional. So in other words, if your idea just isn't investable, I wouldn't keep treading the streets forever. It's like, you know, you can get to that point where you build a prototype and do this, that, and the other, and they still don't quite bite. And there comes a time when you've got to say no, or you bootstrap it. But for my next project, my feeling is if I get investment, it's a validation that the idea is good. So for you with your startup project, if you're chasing money, maybe that's a signal. If you really believe you can get the cash, and if it's seriously happening, great, you got validation. And if you don't, you don't. Yeah.
One more comment on the investment part. I mean, don't forget just one sentence on it. It's you're not taking anyone's money without returning anything, like Stephanie says. So if you take someone's money, you need to make sure that you deliver it back, and they take you hostage in a way as well. So getting investment is not just getting money, it's taking a lot of risk and exposing yourself. So just do it when you really need money for a particular purpose.
And also, just to say this, I read a very good book, the name will come to me in a minute, by the founder of SEO Moz and Rand Fishkin. So a lot of you who are into SEO, you'll know who Moz are. Obviously, you know that they got funded. I think they had about a $20 million injection. And he wrote a book about it. And what was fascinating was that it turned out that, yes, it was successful. Like, he got his cash, he lived the dream, but he ended up a prisoner to the business because the investors will not sell till they get their 100x or whatever, you know, their huge multiple. So he's just kind of stuck in limbo, getting on with the rest of his life now, getting an income, obviously, from the company he founded. But now this isn't going to happen to 99.5% of us in reality, just by virtue of statistics. But it's an interesting point that, yeah, the investors, they want their piece of flesh, and you're marrying somebody, basically. So watch out who you marry.
Don't make the choice too quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
So moving on to a slightly different topic, but nevertheless one that I think all of us highlighted in preparation for this webinar is very important. Mental health and maintaining a healthy work-life balance. It's hard enough for the best of for most people at the best of times, but doing so in an environment many affiliates find themselves in can feel nigh on impossible. Stephanie, if your clients ask you, for example, how many hours a week they should be committing to their projects, how would you respond?
As many as you need is what I'd say. And I am a firm believer of both working smart and working hard. I do think they do go side by side, and there's times in your life where you got to put it on, you got deadlines you got to reach, and sometimes you got to work a lot. But overall, I don't think that any one of us should be working ourselves to a bone. You know, there's no need for that. I think if you organize yourself, you use the right tools, task management tools, and you organize your day from the night before and so on, there shouldn't be a reason why anybody should be working for months and months on end. You'd be doing something wrong in your business or so on if you are. But again, I agree with Nick. If you are a workaholic and you love working, then go for it. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs, we all have this Superman syndrome, which is I can do everything myself. There's nobody that can do it as good as I can, and I can do it faster and so on. But there's, you know, that a 70% rule that Brian Tracy says, if there's anybody that can do it 70% as good as you can, you should farm it out, free yourself up some more, you know, delegate. For me at the beginning, I was doing things all on my own, and then I got my brother on board, very much family business, and a couple of other girls to help me, and I found the business growing really quickly, even better than if I would have been handling it all by myself. They were pushing new work onto me, and I was feeling, you know, pretty overwhelmed, but then I was redelegating all of these things and just directing, you know, which is what we should be doing as the head of the business, managing the business and not the business managing us. But so yes, work enough hours not to drive yourself crazy. You know, I am not a happy person if I'm not enjoying myself as well in my personal life. So it's a very, very important to keep a good balance there. As a business owner, you'll find that, you know, if you are putting the right work and you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work anyways. And you should be happy all around with what you're doing and your time off as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Bertan, from your perspective, obviously, you know, you've seen it before. I've got no doubt many people with projects on the go at once, some people neglecting their health and well-being to focus 100% on the business. How do you strike a positive work-life balance? What does that look like for you?
Well, I mean, I can answer it by saying first, the Superman thing that Stephanie mentioned. I mean, when we're young, and young meaning nowadays, well, let's say below 50, I guess, we really abuse our physical and mental health a lot. And that sounds normal to my generation, but it sounds even normal to the future generations that we're living side by side now. But then you notice that everything is a matter of optimization. So if you give way to one extreme, then the other extreme happens. So I try to remember that, like when I wake up every day, I understand, first of all, that I'm working on things that make me happy, exactly like Stephanie said as well. That's my first rule. If I'm not happy, and if I'm not definitely forced to do it for whatever reason, then I'm out. The second thing is, then I try to make sure that my physical and mental health is there. Because if I lose either of them, then the work will also be affected and my entire life's quality will be gone. So I would say that if you want to do multiple projects at once, you can do up to 10 even, as long as you pay attention to having fun and keeping that balance between yourself, which matters most, I guess, and then not become a slave to what you're doing in the cost of your health and your mental well-being.
And then Nick, I'd like to pass that thread on to you as well. You're ready and raring to go.
Obviously,
you're a former athlete, so you definitely understand the importance of putting your health first. You know, the ultimate responsibility of your business is on you a lot of the time in these cases. If you're not well, do you let yourself take a sick day? How do you approach this challenge?
Okay, so as you probably worked out, I'm a real fan of something called first principles thinking. And that is, you break down, you look at the very essence of something and then you build from there. So the question, what is the essential thing for humans? And the answer is, apart from nutrients and so on. So it's a few basics like sleep quality is a huge thing. And if you just read up a little bit on sleep quality, there's loads of little hacks you can do to just improve your life. So there's a guy called Dave Asprey, who is a biohacker, and he's really interesting on the topic. So, for example, stuff that just, the gist is, if you get 6 hours sleep, so you need to have 5 sleep cycles a night on average. And if you get 4 sleep cycles, then it's the equivalent of being permanently drunk on 1 pint of beer. You get 3 sleep cycles, and then you're on 3 pints of beer, and you're just like, bleh. Now, bear in mind, we were saying earlier that our success is the quality of our decision making. So sleep, the right quality of sleep equals successful decision making. So just to quickly say little tips, but this is just, I'm just doing this to demonstrate a point. So for me to get better sleep, I don't have an alarm clock. I keep the bedroom window open. So my wife gets annoyed by this, but she just has to wear extra bedclothes. We keep the bedroom really dark. I wear red sunglasses about an hour before I go to sleep because it blocks out blue and green light, which then affects my circadian rhythm. I don't eat any stimulants after 12 o'clock. Caffeine keeps in your, it's got a half-life of 6.5 hours, but the point is, if you have 5 cups of coffee, that half-life is basically it's caffeine to overstimulate you. So no stimulants, and it just kind of goes on and on and on. But these are all little micro habits. Oh, one other thing I've learned recently is if you eat raw honey before you go to sleep, it gives your brain enough glucose to basically keep going throughout the whole sleep cycle. So I was having very disturbed sleep where I'd wake up after 4 cycles and then have problems getting into the 5th. Raw honey, really interesting. So my point is, sort out the foundation stuff. The other foundation thing, I know it sounds like what's this got to do with business, but business is you. Just cut out the sugars and the carbs and the Red Bull and all that stuff because it messes with your decision making. So good sleep, good diet, and that's what good. And go and read Dave Asprey's books; they're a perfectly good place to start. Then you'll start and obviously you have the best intentions for yourself. Then guess what? You're going to find your own perfect balance. If that balance is you working 14 hours a day, well, great. I'm doing about 13 hours a day because I've got so much good stuff I want to get on with. But I can go training in the evening and I get enough sleep. And my wife puts up with me, so that's okay.
Sounds like a perfect balance.
For now.
So to break up the in-depth topics a little bit, I'd like to ask each of you what your top 3 practical tips would be for taking on a one-man business to the next level. Obviously, this is a rather broad conversation, but just fire away with the things that you would say have been the best learnings you've had. Stephanie, starting with you.
Okay, great. Well, I would say if you're starting off, if it's day one and you're thinking, okay, what should I do for a business? Or even if you're just starting off in a business, you need to make sure that they align with your core principles. So what are the things that are important to you in life? You know, if you are a family person, then maybe a business that requires you to work, 15 hours a day might not be suited for you. Whatever is important to you, you need to make sure that you translate that when you're starting a business, because like Nick says, you are the business. It's about you. It's about how things that you do that you're passionate about. So I know that on the online gaming industry, there isn't it's not like, oh my God, I'm doing such a great thing for humanity, but there is a lot of fun factors of the business as well, like marketing and so on, and the conferences that we go to. And you can always find the beauty in something, and you can always niche it down to something that resonates with you, that you feel confident about the topic, that you feel there's something that you want to learn more about and do more of. Then that's where you should focus on, as well as money making. Sometimes, for example, I have like 5 different things going on, and at times I have to make sure that you cut something off, say no to something, and focus on the things that you like the most, but that also the things that are making you money. I had a business coach make me cut off something that I was very precious about, and I wasn't liking it, and I did it just to see, you know, what would happen. And sure enough, things got better. I freed up more time, and I started making more money in my other projects. So just that, you know, start by aligning with your core values and go from there. Persistence as well. I think that a lot of us feel like the imposter syndrome, like, you know, who am I to start this business, or I don't know half of the things I'm doing, and, you know, I myself will Google a lot of things, and, you know, you learn as you go along the way. You learn by doing. So don't feel down, keep going, be persistent, ask for advice. Don't be shy to ask for advice, because some people that are where you want to be, don't be asking advice from people that are losers or that are, you know, somewhere else where you don't want to be. So ask advice from the right people and learn from other people's mistakes and follow your role models. I know it all sounds very cliche, but, you know, at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. You need to have a mentality of just keep going, and failure doesn't happen until you give up. So you got to keep going and modify and pivot as you go along. Like Burton says, you start off with a certain plan, and that plan is going to constantly be changing. So on a regular basis, almost on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, I'm constantly redoing my budgets and redoing my priorities and my wildly important goals and so on, because things are constantly shifting. So persist, be persistent, and don't be afraid to do it, to keep going in the industry. Find something that you like.
Brilliant. And Nick, what are your sort of top tips?
I was muted. Okay, so I've written them down, and they are. Okay, here we go. So, as Stephanie says, learn from smart people. So be smart about who you learn from, but always learn. Have the best intentions for yourself, which we talked about earlier. So if you are your best friend and you want the best for yourself, then the best will come. It's this, if you're into, it's like law of attraction and all that stuff, but it's simpler than that. You just talk to yourself as you would like to be spoken to, and be clear about what you want, plan the night before, all those kind of things, and you will get momentum. Value, deliver. This is something Bertrand talked about actually, which is true, which is that if you put delivering value first, the money will follow, as long as you've got the best intentions for yourself. So, you know, if you want to be poor, then fine, but your best intentions are probably to take good profit from great value you deliver. And then from just tactically, it's the fourth thing on the SEO front. It's still on the same thing about value. There's this simple idea, which is you satisfy users, and there's a good reason for it. And it's all in your own self-interest. And it goes like this. Google wants to satisfy its users. So it will rank the content it thinks is most satisfying for its users. And the great thing about Google these days is it's kind of like a popularity contest. You pick a key phrase, you think about the genuine search intent behind that phrase, like what do they really want out of it, that user? And generally speaking, the top 3 or 5 will be an awful lot better than the 15th to 20th, for example. So assuming SEO is a big deal for you, just get your head around user satisfaction. So Google Quality Evaluator Guidelines is a very good document just to tune into all of that stuff. And then if you add up all the other bits and pieces that Stephanie and Bertrand will be saying, you'll be in a good place.
Brilliant. And then finally, Bertrand, to get your sort of final thoughts on the tips and tricks, what would you say? Is it the same as the other guys? Have you got other sort of ideas in your mind?
Actually, well, I don't want to repeat most of the stuff that's been said. One of the tips I can say, or probably the 2 of the most important ones in my mind, are first start with defining and visualizing a goal, because only when you define and visualize something, it can become real, and it can help you believe in yourself. Because believe it or not, psychological research shows that we create our own reality, no matter if you think otherwise or not. If you are not visualizing a goal, the chances are very low that you will be able to realize that goal. So start with
there's
that.
a lot of there's a ton of research papers on this that validate this point. Robert Cialdini is very big onto this kind. Anyway.
Exactly, and also my tiny advice: that don't make this you swimming in gold coins, because that you might realize it, but it won't make you fulfilled as a person. Try to focus on what Nick and Stephanie were saying, just provide value for people. And then the second thing perhaps is you need to get a mentor, and a mentor doesn't have to be someone professional that you pay for. It's someone that you find to have more clarity than you. These people already have been there. They have walked the path that you're about to walk. So they can save you a lot of time. They can save you a lot of pain, but at the same time, they will expand your mind and help you, go wherever you want to go faster, and listen to them, of course. That's an important advice as well. And finally, please take care of yourself. You won't be young forever. No matter how much money you make eventually on this path, it won't be worth it if you spend all of it to fix what you break. So don't break your body, don't break your mind. Just make sure that they are still there when you make it. That's my advice.
Brilliant. Then looking to the next sort of topic we wanted to touch on about developing offerings. Nick, obviously you're an expert in SEO and digital marketing. What are sort of the first key steps affiliates can take to improve their offerings? What tactics require expert guidance? What can people do independently to improve their rankings? I think obviously Stephanie's touched on that a bit already, but it'd be interesting from your perspective.
Okay, it's a huge topic, but I'm going to keep it simple, I hope. All right, so people get obsessed about links. If you've got Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever, and you look at the correlations between, say, unique referring domains and rankings, generally they don't correlate. If you look at the search metrics reports, which are very data-driven, it's all about just masses of variables and their correlations. And the reality is the correlation between links and rankings just don't really fit. Links have a place. If you've got a fresh website, they say, hey, Google, we're here, all this kind of thing. And maybe if you want to give yourself a bump, they work. But what I've seen, the correlation I've seen is that if sites are just unsatisfying, you can get that ranking, they test you, and you get in that zone where you get the traffic. And then if the traffic appears as dissatisfying to Google, then your rankings will slide. And I've done a few big projects over the last couple of years, just helping people out and stuff. And we took a really simple concept, which is insiders and outsiders. So the problem was it was a big transactional site, and they were really fixated on insiders. The catch is, or the thing is, that SEO users are outsiders because they don't know who you are. That's why they found you on a search engine. So just if you're an affiliate, thinking about how to make that page be satisfying and be so you could be orientated within 4 or 5 seconds is a good place to start. So you're orientated in 4 seconds, so site speed, and then you go down a kind of funnel, which is I start with the simple stuff, and as I go down, it gets more complex. Now, the simple way to work all of this out for yourself is to use a tool like Ahrefs, so SEMrush is really good if you want a whole lot of other features, but if you want a hardcore SEO, I think Ahrefs is better. And they have a share of search tool. So you get your group of keywords that are all in the same area. So let's say we mentioned earlier, you want to do slots for Indonesia, right? So there are keywords that matter, local language, whatever. You've got your keyword groups, which is Indonesian slots, whatever the words are in English, because that's maybe the audience you want. And then you're going to see who ranks number 1, who has the greatest share of search. And then from understanding which are the power pages and what key phrases those power pages rank for, you then understand the search intent. And then if that is kind of where you want to be, you want to satisfy that intent as well, and it ranks number 1, then step 1, ignore the links because it messes with your head because of the miscorrelations. And then just think of yourself like, I'm a user. Why is this the most satisfying in this list? Why is this the top power page, and why is that the 10th one? What's the difference? And just by thinking in terms of like gap analysis and understanding what is satisfying, then you make those little tweaks. And with affiliate, because it's so commoditized, you really, to rank, you either have a theme which is slightly different, like there's a site, I remember Hex something or other, there was a network that had a hexagonal theme, like all the buttons were hexagonal and stuff. There are little things. Now I don't know exactly what they would be. That's for you to find out, but now you know how. So get 7-day trial on Ahrefs, get some keyword groups together, make sure they're topically coherent and consistent, look at particular Ahrefs databases for different countries, look at the winners and see what they're doing, and then you know what success looks like. Going back into what Bertrand just said, you'll find success when you see it, when you visualize it. This way, you find success because you're looking at it. And now you know what you can do better and you beat them. You become more satisfying than they do, and then you watch your rankings fly. That's just how it works. And this new business idea that I'm working on is in real estate, because I'm very interested in property investment these days. And we came up with a thing which is going to be incredibly satisfying for users. And I know it's going to fly in rankings because I've seen other sites that are less satisfying but in the same neighborhood, and they went from 0 to like not peak traffic but stable peak traffic, let's say, within 2 months. And this is a fairly competitive area. So look at the rankings graphs as well for these sites. Look at the rankings for the pages, look at the rankings for the sites, see the velocity, and that'll give you a really good clue. Like what you're after is velocity and stability. And with that, then you'll find those sites that you can then take the best bits from and make them your own. So like you have your own particular recipe because you are nobody else, you are you. So you take those ingredients and you make them your recipe and you do your own thing and you satisfy better, you rank and you make money. Bit of a monologue, but there you go.
No, it's brilliant. Thank you so much. I think we're running slightly short on time, so before we close out for the day, I'll move on to quickly ask you guys something I think was quite interesting about learning from biggest mistakes. I think we've all sort of discussed here today about businesses and ideas and different ways that the things that you guys have all achieved, but maybe each of you give us what you think your #1 mistake has been in this journey. Stephanie, what would you say yours would be?
Okay, let's see. Usually when it comes to making mistakes, it's been for being too trusting of people and maybe not cross-referencing things that they've said or promised or said that their website can do, or as an operator that they can do. So many times you end up losing money because you were given the wrong information by a person that's selling you something, and you take that and you say, okay, you know, so I learned how to cross-reference things to the best of my ability to see if that website or that operator has the traffic and the value and the geos that I need to work with. And I also learned how to share the risk and how to get some leverage so that if I don't produce XYZ, if we don't get XYZ results by a certain amount of time, then we either end a contract or XYZ will happen or so on. So I've learned how to protect myself a bit more, I think, and cross-reference things, check up and look up businesses and people and so on, so that you don't make that mistake that can cost you a lot of money, which is just trusting people blindly or just trusting what they say or just falling for a sales pitch.
Fantastic. And Nick, what would you say your biggest mistake has been?
It's exactly the same with Stephanie. Making assumptions and trusting the wrong people. And I'm just, brings back bad memories. I dropped 350K because in dollars, $350,000 because I made assumptions. I made assumptions based on the advice of a lawyer that didn't care as much about the situation as I did. They were in the point being, trust yourself, do your due diligence. I'm just going to repeat Stephanie's thing. Do your due diligence. Just start with, yeah, do your due diligence and always understand people's motivations as well. If their good intentions aren't, if what's good for them isn't necessarily good for you, then whatever they say, don't trust. Just double check, verify. But yeah, sorry, you brought back bad memories for me.
Oh, sorry, Nick.
Sorry, Nick.
That's all right.
Hopefully, while Bertrand's getting his mistake, you'll get some recovery.
Yeah, it's only money, you know, it's only money. It's only in a nice yacht, but anyway. Okay.
Well, Bertrand, what about your mistake? Is it equivalent to a nice yacht, or is it something different?
No, not at all. Actually, it's far worse. It affected other people's lives as well, and hopefully, hopefully most people who are listening will get there. What I'm talking about is financial success with the business you're trying to build. And when you get there, we're all human. And I made one mistake that most business developers did at some time in their career, which means, okay, I need to hire more people and I need to have a bigger office and I need to make this company bigger. And just by hiring smart people and tucking them in a nice fancy office doesn't give you any results. Actually, it's just this assumption that many people make. Unfortunately, it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. So before you scale your business, both from brain power perspective or from size of your office, whatever you want to scale, just be extra super careful if you really need these things. Or is it that you're trying to satisfy your ego, or you're trying to satisfy other people's ego, or you're trying to prove a point that has nothing to do with your business? That was my biggest mistake, and I will never make it again.
Well, I hope that all of those.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, you can tell there's a theme here from all of us, which is self-awareness.
Yeah, I was going to echo that as well. I would just say, hopefully, to our audience today, that's a powerful lesson to be learned. And you know, I think unfortunately we are sort of running out of time today, but there's something to be said for the conversation around mentorship. And actually, Bertrand, when you brought that up earlier, and Nick, when you were talking about learning as well, Stephanie as well, we got lots of people sort of writing and saying the same sort of thing. So like I say, unfortunately, we are very short on time, so we're not actually going to have time for our Q&A today. However, we will be sending the questions around to our panelists who will answer them, and we'll send them around with the post-webinar marketing email that you guys will receive. And we'll also host them on the on-demand page for the webinar, so you guys get your questions answered. Otherwise, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of our panelists for a fantastic discussion. I think it's been really interesting, some great takeaways, productive ones as well, I hope. To our audience, today's webinar has been recorded and will be available to listen to on demand shortly. You'll get an email about that, and it will also be appearing under the video section of igbAffiliate.com. Finally, we hope to see you all next week at IGB Affiliate London. You can find out all of the information necessary at london.igbAffiliate.com. Additionally, our official networking app is now live, so make sure to download this and start booking meetings and planning which of the fantastic sessions you're going to be going to. I know that you guys are going to hopefully be there, so if you guys fancy a meeting with these guys too, drop them a line.
And I'll be speaking at LAC, by the way. I'm doing a session on SEO if you want to come along. I think it's on the Friday 2:30, I think. Check the agenda, but it'll be more of what I've been talking about. But
same for me. I also have it on Friday. I have a speaking session with other people as well. So looking forward to meeting more people.
Excellent. And reach out to me if you want any free advice here to network with people as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much to all of you guys, and we hope to see lots of you there next week. Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yay.